Today we're going to do basic eco-printing. So I'm going to walk us through how I do a very standard eco-print using the stuff that I mostly have around the house. So in terms of supplies, I've got tin foil and some sticks to wrap my bundle with. I'm going to use two types of cloth. I'm going to use a bed sheet, it's an old piece of cotton that's been through a whole bunch of washes, and then some precious silk. This is 100% silk, and it's a fairly thin, flat weave. And then I'm going to use a little bit of iron sulfate or rust, iron, ferrous sulfate, however you want to refer to it, to bring some iron into the bundle. And I'm going to use some unsweetened soy milk. Those are the ingredients, the materials. And then of course there's the plant materials that we get to play with. And that's a lot about exploration and experimentation. I'm going to use some surefire winners that I know will produce prints, but then I'm also going to incorporate some plants that happen to be alive at this time of year where I am. So I'm going to do a little bit of play. I hope you're joining in. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself an iron solution. That means I'm going to take a little bit of ferrous sulfate and I'm going to put it in lukewarm water, and I'm going to make myself a nice iron solution. About a teaspoon in this amount of water will give me a pretty strong solution. I've bought this ferrous sulfate online, but you can make yourself a ferrous acetate by simply putting a bunch of rusty objects in water for a couple of weeks, and then it will be also something you can use. The difference between a ferrous sulfate solution is that this becomes part of the water, whereas ferrous acetate is a suspension where the rust particles are like fish suspended in water. You know, they can drop to the bottom, so you have to shake them. This one you don't have to shake. Once it's a solution, it's a solution. The beautiful thing about this is it is something that many of us keep in our closets, in our cupboards, and is natural and easy. It's a binder, so it helps my cotton act more like a protein fiber. This is not a chemical bind, this is a physical bind, so it will eventually, with wear and tear, wear out, but it will still provide us with color today, which is what we want. So I'm going to put my silk in the rust, and I'm going to put my cotton into the soy. I'm going to let those two sit there while I prepare the next step. I lay out tin foil as my barrier between my layers. This will allow us to be really clear about creating the color. So I lay out my tin foil like this, and then I'm going to lay out my silk right on top. Give it a little squeeze. We can already see that that has turned the color slightly orange. That's the rust working, creating color already in our silk. So I'm not too worried about wrinkles. Personally, I think they're part of the joy of the eco-print. They make it feel very organic. But you can spend some time spreading it out. Some people use other separators to that are smoother, that are softer, there's many different ways that you can protect your print. And now I'm going to spend some time laying out my leaves. This is eucalyptus, which I happen to know is a very good printer. So I'm going to put a little bit of it throughout my design. I like a really organic, loose feel, so I'm putting them in nice and loosely. You'll notice that these are dried. I just stored them in a box under my table so that whenever I need them, I can pull them out and use them. Other ones that I know are surefire winners. The little bit dangerous, for that very reason, any of the cane fruit, bush leaves will work. So raspberry, blackberry, well, those two will work. And I find that the back prints much better than the front of these leaves. So I'm gonna make sure that the backs are down facing the fabric, what I'm gonna call my target fabric. And I'm gonna lay out a bunch of these, again, pretty randomly sprinkled throughout the ecoprint. I have never tried the mimosa or acacia when it's in flower. So I'm super excited. This is a very early springtime thing here. I know that the leaves produce beautifully, and they're these delicate little feathery things that leave wonderful prints. I have no idea what the flowers are gonna do, but I can't wait to see. This, I have no idea how it's gonna work. It's a little bit of parsley, but it's something green that I have in the garden right now, and someone that I trust said that most herbs work, so I'm gonna give a little bit of parsley a try. I'm gonna try it both face up and face down, which will give me more information. What I'm looking for are plants that have tannin in them. That's something that plants produce in order to keep the bugs away. So things that are long-lived are probably going to have more tannin in them than things that are short-lived. That's not necessarily true. Now I'm going to try a couple of geranium leaves. Again, one of my eco-printer friends says that she's had luck with geranium. So I'm going to try some geranium because I had some in the garden. And some people believe less is more. I believe in this experimental phase, more is more. When I think I've got enough, this to me looks like enough. I'm going to then pick up my cotton that's been soaking in the soy, and I'm going to give it a good squeeze out. It doesn't have to be bone dry, it just needs to no longer be dripping wet. And I'm going to spread it out, and I'm going to carefully lay it down over my whole bundle. Now, if you were in one of my retreats and taking a class with me, I would have told you to photograph your bundle before you laid this down. Luckily, I have it all on video, so I know where I've laid stuff. But that will be invaluable later for figuring out what plants worked and which plants didn't. Now I'm going to take one of my trusty pieces of a broom handle, and I'm going to roll up my whole bundle. You'll notice I didn't worry too much about the fact that my tin foil didn't quite come all the way to the edge. I'm a little bit of a kamikaze eco-printer, so I'm not going to worry about it. But what I am trying to do is get my bundle rolled up as tightly as possible, which means I'm pulling it towards me on the end of the table, and then I'm pressing down as I roll. The tighter this is, the better contact there is between the layers, the more clean my prints will be. I'm gonna give it a couple of little rolls at the end. This is why I love tin foil, is because it crunches down on itself. So as I do this, the tin foil is tightening around my bundle. This is now ready for steaming. Welcome to my cauldron. This is what I eco-print in. So I just have an old pot, an old aluminum pot that is long enough for my bundles to sit in. And then I've gone and taken a piece of garden wire, and I've made myself a sling so that my bundles are held above the water, and you can see they sit nicely in here. And then I'm going to put this on the stove. I'm going to put a lid on it, and then I'm going to let this steam for a couple of hours until it smells good and ready. I steamed this for about 2.5 to 3 hours last night, and then I took it out of the steam and I let it cool overnight. Sometimes when I'm not patient and it's Christmas morning, because it always feels like Christmas morning when I'm unbundling an eco-print, I can't wait and I do it while it's hot. There's no advantage other than burnt fingers to unrolling it afterwards. So here we go. Beautiful. This back, let's see the reveal of color and the plant material in there. And what cool results we're getting across the board. Look at that, so pretty. So, this here was our cotton. Remember, we dipped it in the soy milk. This was our silk, and we dipped it in the iron. And what we see is these beautiful the darkness around these leaves is the iron reacting with the tannin in the plants. So we can see that the mimosa, or the acacia in English, has these beautiful, delicate little things. Look at the little dots that were the flowers. Let's see how the flowers looked on the silk. Little circles of black, aren't they sweet? There's our eucalyptus. Now, because we dipped the silk in the iron, the darkest parts are all going to be on our silk. Look at the dark, beautiful colors produced by the blackberry. Here we've got some more eucalyptus. Pop, pop. Look at those pretty little marks left by the eucalyptus gums. There again, we've got those wonderful pops of circles. This parsley didn't do anything, but the geranium-like leaves did. So we have now all of this color on our cotton. So pretty. That's what we have for a basic print. And now that I can see what these plants are doing, I could go back and say, oh, okay, now I'm going to really think more consciously about how to use the pinks that are coming out of the red gum eucalyptus, the yellows that are coming out of the long eucalyptus, the blacks and darks that are coming out of the blackberry, and these punchy yellows as well from the geraniums. That was another geranium here. So much that we can play with. Here I have my beautiful scarves. One for the silky dark effect, or two for my lighter, airier cotton. For those of you who are keen on learning more of this, follow along, because I will be posting more over the next little while.